Welcome to the Sean Trey Show. So we were just having a conversation. I'll let you introduce yourself in a second. But behind you is a picture that says, "Get shit done." Anytime people ask me, and I tell people I'm a producer. I'm a film producer. That's my main job of all of the different, I wear a ton of hats. But they're like, well, what does that mean? And I look at them and I say, one thing, I get shit done. And that's it. Yeah. And that's my whole motto. Because I've produced in my career, gotta be over 1,000 videos, by now. I've been doing videos since, 2008 for all types of media, at least 1,000, hands down, easily. And how did I get it done? One step at a time. And
that's so key. And what that reminds me right there is that it's easy to get shit done when you're in the mood for it, when you're in the flow state, when all that stuff is just kind of flowing and going. But, it's just like with everything else, there's ups and downs. And when I'm editing and I'm getting a mental block or a creative block, I can just kind of look at that and be like, hey, and at the end of the day, even though I love filmmaking, I love videography, I love editing, that doesn't mean that I love it all the time. Once something's a full-time job, it's a full-time job. And I have to remind myself that when I'm not in the flow state or in the mood, I look at that and I'm like, no, this is my job. I need to get shit done. And pushing past that, it's almost like a runner getting their second wind. When you decide, no, screw that, I'm getting shit done today, then you push past that, you keep working. And that's where I've actually gotten my best flow states and my best work done is after a period of being such a mental block in my own head, wanting to just take a break and going, no, push past that, get shit done. And then that flow state goes, all right, I guess we're doing this, and just eases on into it.
I love that statement because there are so many times that, the better examples, when I step away from film, I hate cleaning, but I clean a ton because I've got a 5-year-old kid. And during COVID, my wife's a full-time, she's like a big star and she's got her costumes to worry about. She's got she makes her own stuff. And so she's got a bunch of work that she has to do. And so my daughter's with me a lot and I love that, but I have to clean up a lot. And so one of the things is when I look at a room that is a 5-year-old has been in for an afternoon and you're just I look at it dude, what am I going to do? And what I'll do is I'll tell myself, I start right there. I get this table clean. And once the table's clean, I find the next piece that I can work on. There was this great, Admiral, I think it's William McRaven. He was one of the head of the SEALs when they caught bin Laden. He's a major guy. And he's got this book that's 10 Steps to Living. Now, that's not the title of it, but it's really an interesting book. It's a book that was adapted from his graduation speech. And I think it's Make the Bed is literally the title of the book or something. It's
I was wondering.
You've heard?
In my head, I was I wonder if this is the Make Your Bed thing. Because the wake up in the morning, make your bed, and you have already started your day with one thing checked off the to-do list, and you kind of just try to ride that momentum.
It, man. And that's it. I love that book. Yeah. Whenever I needed to because I sit there and I'm oh, I'm having a down day. I have a headache. This dude in his book, he's I was parachuting and my legs were ripped apart in opposite directions. And then I learned to walk again. And then I got Bin Laden and I was gosh damn, my problems.
And you're and I'm not doing stuff because I have a headache.
Totally, man.
Wow.
Totally perspective. Yeah. Now let's go back. Now, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Conner Peterson, and what I do for work is I'm a freelance videographer, photographer, editor. Right now working primarily with water sports athlete, pro athlete Austin Keene. He's the surfer, skimboarder guy, but I also do a lot of other videography work. My dream job was to always film action sports, but where I was in Georgia, which we recently moved away from, there wasn't much of that going on, and I had to build my portfolio somehow. So I did a lot of product hero videos because I don't need to hire talent. I could do that kind of solo by myself in my own little makeshift studio. I've done a lot of weddings. I've done some corporate stuff. So kind of the jack of all trades in terms of video, master of none. But I enjoy all aspects of videography that I'm not willing to niche myself down to one thing. I know if I just went towards only doing weddings, I could be more, successful financially. But I'm not willing to do that to myself. I enjoy really anything with a camera, but the long-term goal is to be doing action sports. Awesome. So once I got the deal with Awesome Keen, that just I'm investing a lot of time outside of, what I'm getting paid to do it, because it's what I love, and it's putting me exactly where I want to be. Now, what I do outside of my work is, I am a action sports fanatic. I love doing that as well. I'm a skydiver, wingsuit pilot, rock climber, mountain biker, ran on American Ninja Warrior on season 8, competed on in the obstacle course racing world championships for 3 years, like Spartan race, Savage race, those kind of races. And that's what I like to do in my off time, is anything that kind of gets me scared. That's awesome. And puts me into a flow state of action sports. I just love all of that stuff.
This is something that a lot of people don't understand, that flow state, that place of. You ever watch Harry Potter? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right. Remember in movie number 4, Goblet of Fire, when he gets the liquid luck, and so he couldn't figure things out. He drinks the liquid luck, and he's kind of just flows with stuff, and everything just kind of works out. Mm-hmm. And I played collegiate volleyball and D1 volleyball, really high level, club ball, but still we were playing against some top teams. I don't know how my tiny little college, we kind of lucked out and got into the top club league, and we were getting slammed, but it was awesome, man. We were getting, tossed around, but we held our own against some couple top teams, and that was fun. But there were a couple times where I'm trying to figure out how to say it, because it's hard to articulate. There were a couple games that I had. I was not a star player. I was the guy that's on the. I'm like Rudy. I'm the guy who worked his ass off to get there. You know what I mean? That was always me. And most of the time, I was the team cheerleader, because I'm just standing on the sidelines. Get your ass, let's go, guys. And I loved it. I loved who I was. Yeah. And then when I came in, but I was always really into flow. And I don't know, it just was something that would come naturally to me. Like, I would go up and I would attack. And my coach is like, go here. And I'm just like, I feel like going this way. Boom. And it worked, because it was the right vibe. It was that right movement. It was that right vibe, that right flow. And it was always like that. The idea of, like, in Harry and the Felix Felicis, the liquid luck, you don't know which way you're going to go, but you go. And in life, that has served me so well that that's how I met my wife. Like, one day I was sitting at home, and I was like, I need to go see my bro. And I called, where you at? I'm at the recording studio. I was like, oh, come over there. And I was like, and I was like, well, I'm going to linger over here and buy something. Took my time. And then I got to the recording studio. He's like, oh man, I was waiting for you, but you're late now. So I'm going to phone. I got to wait out here, go do a phone call. Wait for me. It'll be 20 minutes. It was an hour and a half. And I'm just sitting there going, why am I still waiting here? And all of a sudden I hear this really beautiful singing from down the hallway. It's like, well, what is that? I don't know. I'm going to go check it out. Walk down the hallway, and there's this amazing woman singing this beautiful jazz. And it was just like, I was captivated. And I sat down. She saw me. I saw her. You think it'd be magic, love at first sight. She's probably like, what the hell is this guy staring at me for? But then she left, and like, we didn't see each other. And then, but then we found each other again a couple days later, and the rest is kind of our history. But it took that flow state. It took me being in that flow state, because I used to like riding motorcycles. And when you ride a motorcycle, you kind of just go with it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, 100%. And I think what's great about the flow state is, it's really important that things don't break your flow state. And that is a skill in of itself. If I'm in a flow state, and I hear a noise or something's going on, or I get a phone call, it's important to train yourself to be like, hey, maintain flow state, because the littlest thing can take you out of it. And getting back into the flow state is pretty difficult for me sometimes, once I've been kicked out of it. So it's an extremely powerful thing.
How would you describe a flow state for people? What would you describe that as?
I would describe it as it's a moment in time when your brain kind of allows ideas to come in freely without that negative voice saying, oh, that's a bad idea. And then once you get that idea, it's just kind of, I feel like my brain just puts this like, okay, here's your to-do list to get that idea done. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's not jumbled. It's not this mess. I can just kind of flow through that to-do list without anything getting in my way and without any distractions. Creativity just comes naturally. And it feels like you're just getting things done and it's just moving smooth where, you know, a lot of times when you're working, things don't feel like they're moving very smooth. You're whether problems are going on or you're like, oh, I just can't figure this out. It's that moment in time where everything, like you with the luck potion, everything just kind of starts to work together, and you just kind of ride the flow of you know, things working out. And that's how it's almost a meditative state, because when you're in the flow state, one reason people say meditation is so important is that you're in the moment. Like that's the only moment you're in. You're not thinking about other things. And so I think even though you're working or running or doing some type of sport or playing music, once you're in the flow state, you are fully in that 100%. Moment. And that is a version of a meditative state, in my opinion.
I think so too, man. And I think that what's so powerful with that is that you have all your creative energy at that moment to do what you need, because you're not spread out. You're not thinking about the bills. You're not thinking about taxes. You're not thinking about getting your car serviced. You're just like, you're there, and you have all of your presence in that activity. Certainly those things that you need to think about will still be there, but it doesn't, 99% of the time thinking about them doesn't solve anything. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah, that's huge. It's because when you're in the flow state, it's, you know, what's important to get done is what you're working on right now. And a lot of the other stresses that we have in life, whether it's bills or, you know, family matters or whatever it might be, like you said, thinking about it oftentimes 99% of the time isn't changing anything. You're just adding this stress into your life. You're adding all this stuff. Now, when it's time to get it done, you got to get shit done. But when it's not the time for that and you're just distracting yourself from what you actually should be doing, it's disruptive to getting creative and getting true good work done.
Which is it's 100% true, man. Now, how did you get into filmmaking? How did you find this career?
So oddly enough, you know, I've always wanted to be creative in some way. If you give me a pencil and piece of paper and tell me to draw a stick figure, you might not be able to tell what it is. I've always wanted to be artistic, but I just couldn't do it. I tried with music for a little bit and it just wasn't striking me. And it's all going to make sense. I'm going to backtrack to it. So I start skydiving.
Take tangents, man. I love the tangents, I go on my first, because they are a flow state.
Perfect. There you go. I start skydiving. I go for my first skydive one day, just out of the blue, woke up. I was bored, called up my buddy. I was like, hey, man, let's go skydiving. So went on the skydive. The moment my feet hit the ground, I was like, let's do another. I need to experience that again. Went for a second jump that day, and I just knew it's something I had to do for the rest of my life. I was like, here's my credit card. I'm going to figure it out later. Sign me up for the course. I'm getting this done. So once you're going through the course, your instructors have a GoPro on their head and they're filming you, and they give you the footage and say, hey, I want you to see how your body's flying. I want you to study what you could be doing different. You know, you see my hand signals here and you did this improperly. So I'm watching these videos, and a lot of the footage is really cool. I mean, it's skydiving. So I was like, I'm going to edit a little video together just to show my friends and family on Facebook what kind of, you know, what the course is like and what I'm doing. And I remember my first time editing that video being like, this is so much fun. This is a type of creativity that I've been looking for like my whole life, but never been able to find, like, because I'm not artistic in the painting sense or the music sense, but I love tech. I learned that I love cameras, and from that, it just started snowballing. You know, I did a couple more skydiving edits and realized, well, I love editing and I can only go skydiving so much. So I got a cheap Sony A6000 and started filming everything, awesome. Making coffee B-roll sequences, making, you know, all that, the cliche standard stuff. And and started getting some potential clients. My mother has an invention that my family was on Shark Tank.
Oh, do tell.
So my mom got a deal with Mark Cuban for this thing called a shower toga. So she was like, hey, I'll pay you to make a video for me. I was like, great, awesome. And people saw that video, and just through word of mouth over time, I've never done an ad or a promoted post or anything. I just kept getting these gigs, and it just kept snowballing. And I'm still a student to it. I think everyone should admit that they're still a student, no matter how great they are. So it still feels kind of like I'm new at it, even though I'm not. But that's what got me started, was actually skydiving.
That's awesome, man. There is like, I find that most good stories always begin with some type of inspiration. And it might not be the traditional outlet that you think it would be. Like, it might not be like, there's this old wise man came to me and said, maybe you should be it might just be like, well, that's kind of cool. Let's check that out. And then it turns into something else, which turns into something else. I love that Steve Jobs speech, the graduation speech where he's like, you can't connect the dots looking forward. Like, there are all these things that are coming together in your life, and we think that we have a plan. And when I look back at so much of my life, the stuff that I thought that I was going to end up doing didn't plan out. But yet there was always the things that I was supposed to be doing always come into play. I remember for ages, my friend was telling me, Sean, have you thought about teaching online? I was like, I don't want to teach online. And she's like, I don't know, man. I get this idea about you being on the internet, sharing with people ideas. And I was like, I don't know, man. And then all of a sudden I saw my friend do a podcast, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I could do that. Let's try that out. And then it's exactly that. I'm sharing ideas. I'm facilitating learning, of some sort, just in my own way, not school learning. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I think it's really important for people to, because I've always been someone, and my parents joke about this, my family jokes about it, that I always have my thing, and that thing might last a month, it might last 6 months or a year. I get into a particular sport, I hyper obsess over it for a little bit, and then I find my new thing. And luckily, they almost look at it like a negative part of my character. But in reality, I see it as a positive, because I'm not going to find those things that I love that truly make me feel like life is amazing unless you try things consistently over and over. You keep trying new things, and those certain things that just really encapsulate you, those will happen. You have to put yourself out there to try, to get scared, to get uncomfortable, to push through it, and to see if it's something that you want to continue doing. So, for example, with podcasting, you saw it and you went, that looks pretty cool. I could do that. And I'm sure after you did a few, you were like, wow, this is awesome. This is amazing. And who's not to say you might have been like, I didn't like that. That wasn't fun. But hey, you tried it.
And some of them I was just like, well, that sucked. But, it's like, some of the things, I've tried, not the podcast. Like, some of the things I've tried, I've been there, and I was just like, oh, let's try this. There was one of the coolest guys that I've had on recently. And I used to love drawing, and drawing was a fun thing I did. And then he inspired, and I was like, I'm going to go draw again. And I tried it. And I was like, man, this is not my thing. I respect it. I love what he did. Yeah. But I tried it again, and I was like, that's my wife and daughter. They love that. My mom loves it. I don't have that vibe. I don't feel that same. But give me, writing a song. I love that. Writing a screenplay. I love that. Writing, putting together, editing something that's really fun. There you've got my attention. You know what I mean? Give me a camera and give me a couple rolls of film. Now we're talking. There's certain things that spark each person's creativity, and I think that's important.
The only way you're going to find what sparks is by trying a bunch of shit. Just keep trying things that might interest you, and you might surprise yourself. Because if you told me 4 or 5 years ago that I'd be a freelance videographer when I was working for the software company, I'd be like, nah, that I probably wouldn't. I want to do that. Like, yeah, it sounds cool, but nah. But now that I dipped my toes in it, and I was like, wow, I'm feeling a spark that I've never felt before. And not only that, but something that could give me a career. I never knew what I wanted to do growing up. I had ideas of I guess that pays well and it seems kind of cool. But to find something that sparked my passions that also could lead to a career just happened because I was willing to just try new stuff.
That's a big deal. And you touched on one things. My holy grail that I someday want to try. I want to wingsuit fly so bad, man. I want to wing. I want. So ever since I was a kid, I've had these dreams of flying, but not flying. Like literally, I run out and then I start gliding through the air. And when I saw wingsuit flying coming up, I was like, man, I'm not the only one who must have had that dream. That's it. And like, it's a recurring dream I had for years. And I still tell myself, I was like, when I get back to the States, man, I got to try skydiving. And then I have to try to see what the path is for that. Because if I've had that dream my whole life and then I never take the chance at trying that thing in real life, what fate am I, what am I not embracing? What part of myself am I not embracing? You know what I mean?
It's almost like a disservice to yourself. If it's something that's on your mind and you've been dreaming about for so long, like wingsuiting truly is the closest, I think, that you can feel to human flight. Now you have paramotors, you have these small little airplanes, but you're reliant on these big motors and all this crazy gear. When you're in a wingsuit, it's you, the suit, and the parachute on your back. And you just feel free and the like gliding through the air. Now, I'm not a base jump wingsuiter. I respect those guys. It's awesome. I stick to out of aircraft and I go through clouds and everything.
Still pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just this level of, like you said, you dreamed of human flight and you're not the only one. Right. I think most humans have thought about what would it be like to be able to fly, like to truly feel like you're flying. And it's better than you can expect. You've
experienced it, which is the awesome part. The people that are willing to try. And it's not just that try. It's about like, I want to switch into like one of the things that so skimboarding, right? I watch Austin's videos. Wild stuff. And wild for a couple of reasons, right? I remember watching kids play with skimboards and going, what is that? That's nothing serious. You know, that's not that interesting. It's just they're throwing this thing on the sand. Some people cannot conceptualize the level things can get to. And those people often will try to kill creativity too. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Those are the people who go, you shouldn't try that, man. It's not that good. Or it's like, whether it be something as, those little Razor scooters used to be Razor, but they're just regular scooters now, that kids would ride, Yeah. Now, the stuff that people are doing on those is nuts. It's insane. Yeah. I've been watching some of those videos. It's insane. But, it took people saying, let's try.
Yeah. It's also people who found a sport that they're passionate about, and they might know that they can't make a living off of it, but they don't care because they're so passionate about it that they're, look at rock climbers coming up. When you get back to like the old school Yosemite, all those high elite athletes, there was no, hey, they were living in Camp 4, they were eating cat food. Yeah. They didn't care though, because they loved the sport. And those are the people who can prove to society what is capable with that sport, whether it's skimboarding, like with Austin. Most people see skimboarding as throwing this wooden thing across the sand. You go sideways and maybe you do like a little shove it. Well, now we see what it can actually be, which is going deep into the waves, getting barrels, all this crazy stuff. And it takes people that are passionate about something outside of caring what society thinks in order to push it and go, let's see what's truly possible with this. And it's really important to have those people in society because it continues to blow all of our minds and just expand what is possible with sports, with music, with this arts and everything.
It's powerful because so often we all get stuck in our boxes. And at times we whatever your box is, so many of us get stuck in them. And when you see other people who go, there was that, what was it? I was watching a video that Austin did where he transited like through this tunnel from one boat, pulled by one boat, transited through this tunnel into the wake of another boat. And I was just
the tunnel stunt. And to this day, he'll say, he's like, that was probably one of my dumbest ideas. Cause we've talked about that video. That was before I was working with him. And he was like, that was a really dumb idea. He's going fast towards that tunnel and there's jagged edges, and skimboards don't have fins. There's no fins. Steering that is extremely difficult. And, to this day, he's like, I don't know if I'd do that again, but that's one of the craziest stunts he's ever done. Yeah. But there always has to be that person pushing the limit. And that's why I love watching these base jumpers and these wingsuit proximity flyers, because they're pushing the limits. I'm not willing to risk that personally, but it's important to have the people that are to see what's possible.
And I just was like thinking about those guys that are just, this high, just, and just like, it's amazing.
It's amazing how fast things can go wrong in a wingsuit. I was practicing my back fly. So I'm flying, doing a standard flight, and then I flip over on my back. Everything's going great. And I go to flip back over by, you close an arm wing, and you start to roll your body over. And I didn't quite do it all the way. I kind of rolled to about there. And I was like, okay, I'll use the momentum and go the other way. So I went the other way and went straight head down, spun out of control, just woof, woof, woof. And I was like, this is bad. And I probably lost like 500-600 feet before I was able to regain control of my chute. Imagine if something happens like that when you don't have 500 feet to spare. But those guys are next level. Flying a wingsuit is difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. You just got to relax into it, but it is still, once things go bad, you are in a straitjacket, essentially. So, those guys are insanely talented. And since we've moved out here to California, I have a bunch of really high-level wingsuit athletes right near me across Lake Elsinore, which is where we live in an RV in Lake Elsinore. We drove across the country from Georgia, and now we're RV living, and we're right across from this drop zone with all these crazy wingsuit pilots. So I'm about to get really good.
Awesome. That's the plan. Awesome. Oh man. Yeah. I've wanted to do I was going to pitch to my wife, like, as we come back to the States, to do 6 months where we kind of traverse the US in an RV and like just explore parts of the country and just put our feelers out and connect with people and do some different cool music where we're doing music in different locations and stuff in different locations. Mm-hmm. It seems so interesting. We got also a 5-year-old kid, but maybe that's also a good reason to show her the world, And so I've always been fascinated by that.
I think, so the reason we chose to do it early in life, so many people choose to retire and then do the RV life. They kids, they raise a family, and then they decide to do it. My parents, for example, they live in an RV as well. But we decided that we want to travel the country. We want to experience all these places. And once we find that place that makes us go, we could raise a family here.
That's my point.
That way we've exhausted. Yeah.
That's my point. That's exactly it. Because like right now, like I'm looking at like, I'm plotting a move back into the US, right? But like I was looking at different work and options, and I'm like, I don't want to get sucked into a place and suddenly I've spent 20 years in a location that I don't love. And it's maybe I don't love it, but maybe I just didn't know that there's a place that I loved more, which is the cool thing now about one of the things that I think is really special and going to shift in the world economy, and the cat's out of the bag. And I think companies have to realize the cat's out of the bag. People don't need to come to an office.
Yes. It's so crazy that I'm having these friends that are having to go back to the office, and they're like, I get more work done working remote. And now luckily a lot of companies have learned that, and they're like, hey, let's sell our office building, let everyone work remote.
They don't have to pay for electric and bills and insurance and all of this stuff that they would have to pay for, Mm-hmm. And there was
that shift is happening.
And it's going to be a bigger deal, I think, in the next 15 years. And there was this one interesting story too that said the story of humanity. It's an article I read in the Science magazine or some type of science magazine. And it said the story of humanity up to this point has always been the movement of people towards cities, because cities was where commerce is at. But what's happening now is there's this new migration out of the cities, because our high-speed communication systems have changed the game. That, like if I wanted to say, hey, you and I say, hey, let's do a project together. I shoot some in Vietnam, you shoot some there in California. And then we both upload our footage because we've got high-speed internet. We both upload our 4K footage to, the drive or the cloud. And then boom, one of us downloads it, we edit it, and it's done. It's not a challenge anymore. You know what I mean? It used to be this prohibitive thing. Now it's just like done. And it's easy.
Well, cities are still massive and people still flock to them, but that was because that's where all the goods were. If you wanted to get stuff easily and accessibly, you go to a city because you can get everything you need. Now we have Amazon. You can live out in the middle of nowhere and get things on the spot. And another thing I like is a lot of these micro cities are kind of building up. Where I was from in Georgia, it's called Woodstock. We had our little downtown Woodstock. There was no reason to go to Atlanta. We had our own little mini downtown. So those are starting to build up. Like, look what happened with Boulder, Colorado. A lot of surrounding areas in California. They're realizing that, like, hey, these massive cities, they're cool. I personally don't enjoy staying in them. Maybe a weekend or something like that, but I can never imagine living deep in Atlanta, deep in LA. But I do love the little cities, and those are starting to pop up, and people can choose to live anywhere and still get anything that they need and still work remote. And it's a beautiful thing. It's
a new world, man. It's kind of cool. Now talk to me about, what are some of the films that inspire you? What were some of the movies that when you were starting to go, hey, what were some movies that you go like that's the type of stuff that I love? Or
Valley Uprising.
Valley Uprising. All right. Tell me why.
Yes. Pretty much anything Jimmy Chin has done is I love. I watched a lot of the Red Bull TV, like Real Rock is really good. Now that's not to say I do love other films that do inspire me that have nothing to do with what I shoot. For example, like I shoot action sports and weddings, but I still heavily appreciate the larger productions. Chernobyl on HBO, that docuseries.
Oh my God.
That is one of the best pieces of filmmaking, I think, of this decade.
It was not listed as one of the greatest works ever. That docuseries was phenomenal, man.
Amazing. So good. I was listening to, they have podcasts after each episode, and I was listening to that. And while the lighting techniques and everything that they're doing might not translate to what I do, it still inspires me to get in front of my computer and create what I have and what I'm working with, just to see work that amazing. You might be a musician and you hear a song and it might be from a completely different genre, but that doesn't mean it can't inspire you to shift it to some version of your genre. A lot of people talk about originality or like, where do you get your ideas? And I steal them. I steal my ideas, but you steal portions. You steal 20 different portions of these ideas, and by the time it's coming to fruition, it's this whole new original idea. It's Steal Like an Artist is this book that I highly recommend to anyone who's creative. Great book. And when people, original ideas, it's almost impossible to come through an original idea. Even if you think it's original, you might realize, there's something like that out there. But you find people who inspire you, and
all these Hollywood movies have been stolen from Shakespeare, and then Shakespeare stole from all of the Greek poets. You know what I mean? It's like there's nothing new under the sun, man. Like people have the stories have been recirculated again and again and again, and it's like, and if you can simply reimagine something, you're doing it a great service, because we need stories to be updated. We need stories to be modernized. We need stories to be reinterpreted from our current interpretation and a worldview, that you go back and you watch, there was some movies. What movie was it? I was watching something from the, I don't know, it was like a 50s or 60s movie. And I was watching it with my wife, and we were watching, or even it was like a 90s movie, actually. We watched it, and there were some themes that people were talking about. And we were like, yeah, you couldn't do that now. Like, you just, because we've started to look at things in a different way, you know, and we're approaching things in a much different way. And that's good. It's life, you know, things evolve, and we evolve, and we look at things with a new perspective. So I'm all for it, man. As long as you're,
it's important to keep
as long as you are pushing the boundaries and making it better, or at least trying to make it better.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just always progression. And especially with the filmmaking industry, you look at old movies compared to new movies or remakes of movies. And you know, it's pretty standard that sequels aren't as good as the first, or that remakes aren't as good as the original. But it's still important to find a new perspective, or to remake with, you know, whether it's the new gear or new full-blown ideas behind the film or the videos that you're making. And we're talking a lot about, you know, movies and films here, but even if you want to remake a video that you have, we're about to remake Austin's How to Skimboard series. Awesome. And he's like, why? The first one's good. The first one's solid. I'm like, it's good, but aren't there some new ideas you might have? Or aren't there some ways you might want to spice this up a little bit and tune it? He's like, oh, yeah. And I was like, well, then let's do that. Because you always got to be pushing the boundaries, trying new things, and changing the perspective on it, because the perspective of the world is constantly changing. So if you're an artist and you're creative, you want to, of course, put society's perspective into account, but never let it take too much away from what you want to actually create, because your perspective is changing 100%. Too.
And that's the thing. Like, we are all on a journey where each step, you know, if you asked me to write a song or write a movie or make a video at each stage of my life, each one is going to be completely different, even if it was the exact same script. You know, it's like you could give me the same script and I approach it at different parts and points in my life, and I would present that story to you in different ways because of my own perspective. You know, it's something as simple as like, I remember when I first moved to Vietnam, I moved back here in 2001. What year was it? 2010. No, 13 came back. So 2013, I was here in 2001 to 2003, and then I went back to the States, and I came back in 2013. And before my daughter was born, I was much more brash. You know, I would get into it with people. Like, you know, someone cuts me off in the street, and anywhere in the world, I'll get into it with you, man. You know, it's just like, I don't know why. I was so fighty. I was ready for a fight all the time. You know, hey, what you doing, bro? Chill out, man. You know, that's my wave, man. Yeah, you get out of my way, man. What's up? You know, and so when I had my daughter, there was one time I remember we were driving somewhere, and some guy cut off another guy, not us. And this guy had a kid on his bike, and he was about ready to start fighting this other guy. And his daughter starts crying on the back of the bike, just crying. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, man, I got to stay safe for my kid. Not that I don't try things, not that I'm not adventurous, but like, don't be stupid. You know what I mean? And it's stupid in a way that it's like, trying to fight a random stranger because they walked in front of your motorcycle or something. Like, that's some bullshit right there. You know what I mean?
And no matter what happens, either you kick his ass and you would probably feel bad about it that your daughter saw that.
Exactly.
Or you get your ass kicked, and that's not good either. 100%. So there's no great outcome to deciding to move forward with your aggression towards him. There's no...
I remember the exact event that happened. Actually, it was the event that changed it all for me. I was at a big event with my wife. It was the last event she sang at while she was pregnant, before our daughter was born. And we were crossing the street, and we were in a crosswalk, and this dude ran the crosswalk. It was like New Year's, and he starts running the crosswalk, and he came up and he hit me and my wife. Like, he hit us, not hard, and she was 6 months pregnant. And so she was okay. It didn't knock her, it bumped our legs, and then he stopped. you know, and then I got into it with him, man. And like, I was carrying her suitcase. I hit the suitcase up against his window, and I was like, man, you just, don't like, you just hit us. And I was ready to go. And he jumped out of his car and ran up on me. And then I'm a black belt in judo. I studied karate. I studied Muay Thai. And I was like, let's go, bro.
Like, yeah.
and he came up to me, and I turned, and in the back seat of his car were two little girls. And they were just little. And they were little, man. One was 2, one was like 4. And I'm now thinking about my daughter, like, and I looked at that and I was like, I'm not doing this, man. I pointed at his daughters, and I speak Vietnamese, and I was like, you have 2 kids. Get in your car. And my wife started saying the same thing to him. Just get back in your car, dude. Do you see your daughters are crying? Get in your car. And he looked at me so angry, but then he looked back at his kids and he shook his head and he got back in the car. He's still an asshole.
Yeah.
Can't stop that. But you know, you got
kicking his ass. You got to stop him from being an asshole.
Coming back to what we were talking about, our perspective change. Life changes us. And hopefully we become better. And when you go back at a project or something, even how to make a skimboarding video, you have a new perspective, a new level of knowledge, a new level of insight that you hopefully bring into it. That, you know, hopefully.
I think the biggest perspective change that's happened in my life was, you know, growing up, I was a scared kid. I was scared of everything. Anything where I could potentially get hurt, I was just scared. I wouldn't do it. I would not do all the fun things young kids were doing because it just scared me too much. I didn't want to get hurt. Once I found skateboarding, because that was my first love of the sport, was skateboarding. I, you know, competed and I used to instruct it and everything. So once I found that, and I realized I'm not this fragile little being, and, you know, being scared is okay. Being uncomfortable is okay, because the best moments I've had in life have been immediately after I was scared out of my mind, you know, like where I put myself in a position to be scared, but I knew in the back of my head, you're probably like 99% chance going to be okay, and go for it. So that was my big perspective shift on life. Now, that's a fine line to walk, of course, because you want to put yourself in scary situations, but not too close to the edge. Where you can actually get kind of messed up. Because I've had some accidents. I fell 55 feet rock climbing and hit the ground, rushed to the ER. I, you know, skateboarding, I've broken my cheekbone and, you know, fake tooth. And I've, you know, those things happen. But the amount of experiences that I've gained through being scared and getting uncomfortable far outweigh the couple injuries that I've had. And that's what really shifted my whole perspective on life, that life isn't out to get me. I should be out getting after
life. There's
a
difference between irrational fear and rational fear. You know, irrational fear.
Yes.
I'm afraid of walking outside my house. Rational fear. I'm not going to go up and punch the grizzly bear in the face. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
You know, not going to coat myself in peanut butter and go, hey, Wolfie. You know, it's like.
Yeah. I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying, hey, go out there and get yourself scared and go do some free solo, like do some extra dangerous stuff. No, it's, you know, you can get yourself scared doing perfectly safe things. Our bodies don't feel like they should skydive. I'm still scared a little bit every time I go jump. But that's the reason I do it. You know, you look out the plane window, or I did a hot air balloon jump, and that was probably when I remember standing on the basket and my leg was shaking. And I was like, why is my leg oh, that's because I'm really scared right now. But you learn to find these situations to where you're scared, but you translate your fear into excitement, because you know you're going to be okay. Instinctively, our caveman brains want to go, no, this is
even thinking about that. Like, I start visualizing myself looking out the window of a plane. I'm terrified of flying, man. I'm terrified of it. Yeah. You know what I'm scared about flying, and I can tell you why. It's not the flying. It's my absolute fucking lack of control. It's the fact that when I am on a passenger airplane, I am literally at the whim of the mechanics, of the pilots, of everyone else who had any part in maintaining that plane. I'm at whim of the engineers. Granted, all of them are professionals, and all of them are most likely doing the job at the highest level of their ability. But I still have no control. And it's almost that you have to be in this place of surrender. And so that's what terrifies me. And so I, you know, and when I think about looking out that window, though, it's just like, I even imagine these. So I can only imagine, man. But like, there are things that I don't have fear over that other people might, you know, and part of that is experience. Right. It's experience and a willingness to try stuff, you know. Some people would be terrified of doing this, man, where they're just interviewing people on a talk show. Like, some people are, this is their biggest freaking fear. But for me, it's not a problem. And for them, maybe they're, you know, they are dancing with a grizzly bear every night, you know?
Some people, for a situation like a podcast, like right now I'm thinking it's you and me right. Talking. You and me having like a FaceTime essentially, but other people read it as, oh, there's thousands of people listening there. But in reality, it's just us having a conversation. So it's kind of the rational versus irrational fear where, like, yes, people, you know, like there will be lots of people listening in, but you just got to give in to the fact that you're just having a conversation with someone. And back to your flight thing, I think a lot of people have, you know, you said you wear a lot of hats. Yeah. You do a lot of things. But you also fear not being in control, you know, with the flight, and you just have to cross your fingers and trust. And I'm in the same boat in terms of, you know, my work and why I wear multiple hats and why I'm the colorist. I do all the audio, I do the editing, I do the filming. And I think that's because I have a fear of giving up control of some of those things to somebody else. And because that fear can go towards work as well. And at some point you have to let go of that fear and be like, okay, I'm going to outsource and I'm just going to trust it. And it's a hard thing to do.
Sometimes they fail, but you got to still try. Yeah. And it's that trial and error. Like, if you don't try, you'll never. I was trying to do everything myself. And I was trying to do all my own for our music. Like, I was trying to learn how to do like all of the music tracking, like tracking all our vocals, recording all the vocals. And then I wanted to learn how to mix everything myself. And I was doing mixing classes and stuff like that, above and beyond the fact that I studied all of my film stuff. And, you know, I was like, I need to do everything.
Right.
I finally got to this point where I realized I can't. There is literally too much to know, you know, and you know, we have this guy who's absolutely amazing at mixing our stuff, and he's so good. And at some point in time, it's not always what I want, but by me learning more about it, I was able to communicate to him more clearly about what I was looking for. And so it's like sometimes that having that language is important though too. So
yeah, it's definitely important to learn the basics, but at some point, if you spread yourself so thin, I'm never going to be a master colorist because some other guy out there is spending all the time that I'm spending to learn everything to learn one thing. And of course, he's going to be more knowledgeable and better at color grading or audio mixing and all that kind of stuff. And so you have to, but like you said, it's really important to learn the basics of those, because then when you say, hey, I want this changed, you don't feel like you're like just completely out of the know on how this stuff works. It's important to be in the know of how it all works.
I got a question for you. If you could go back in time and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
Invest in Bitcoin.
Second person that said that, and I am 100% in agreement. Yeah,
really? Yeah. I think I would tell myself, if I'm telling my, let's say, 10 to 12-year-old self, what I would say is, stop caring so much about what other people think. Stop trying to morph yourself into what you think they want to see, and just be yourself. Because I was definitely during, you know, that age, I didn't even quite know who I was because I was so worried about people liking me. And you can't make everyone like you. And especially if you're not being your authentic self, then the people who do like you for who you've been pretending to be. Past that, I would say, you know, in the creative wise, I would say take constructive criticism with a grain of salt. Because if you've made something that you love and someone else, you ask like, hey, what's your opinion? What's what do you think of this? And they're like, oh, I didn't really like that part. Or this could be a little better. Take it with a grain of salt, because if you love it, that's what's truly important. And there have been many times where I was like, oh, you think this should be changed? So I change it. And I ask multiple people. And by the end of all these changes and what other people like, it's not what I envisioned anymore. And the whole point is for it to be my vision coming to life. And I think my videos have gotten better and my work has gotten better once I take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes they have great ideas and I make the change and I'm like, that is awesome. And that was kind of what I was going for. And other times I'm like, thank you for the criticism, but just because it's constructive criticism doesn't mean you have to change those things. So create for you and not for what you think other people want to see.
I had a friend. It's one of my best friends. And I recently wrote this song that I released a couple days ago called Winona for my grandmother. And it's a song that I just put up on YouTube. And it was a song written. My grandmother died on Christmas Day in 1961. My mom was a little girl. And it was a long time ago. But I wrote this song to remember her because there were so few photos. And my daughter was asking me about my grandma. And I couldn't tell her much because, I never met my grandma. But I told her the stories and my mom would tell me the stories. And I wanted to do something beautiful, right? And I wrote this song. And I think it's a beautiful sounding song. I love it. I listen to it because I enjoy it. And my friend Fu did amazing guitar. He wrote it with me. And it's a beautiful song. And one of my friends saw it. And I love her to death. But her comment literally was, it's a beautiful video. You licked your lips too much. And I was like, of everything that is in there, like the song, this beautiful touching tribute to my grandmother, the guitar is phenomenal. My vocals, I hoped, were okay. My lyrics were, I think, really good, but maybe not. I licked my lips. You cannot make everyone happy. And you shouldn't try.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't try.
Yeah. There's the only way to possibly make everyone happy is to have different personalities. That's the only way. And that's not healthy. If you try to make everyone happy, you're going to end up caught in a lie or caught acting like you're someone that you're not. And it's okay to not make everyone happy. I have tons of great friends that I disagree with strongly on certain subjects. And that doesn't mean you can't get along with them. I think that's something that's going on with our culture and our society is that, if you believe this, we can't be friends. I'm not like that. Because in
no
reality,
one believes the same thing.
I know that I don't know.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know I don't know everything and I'm not going to pretend to. I'm pretty stoic in the sense of if what you believe doesn't, or if you're not out there actively hurting people or belittling people, if by the end of the day we can high five and grab a beer and be friends, I don't care what you believe. If you're a nice person who wants good for other people, then that's all it takes for me.
I'm with you, man. And I think that we everyone needs to chill the fuck out sometimes and just be cool with people for people and respect people for trying, And if I lick my lips when I sing, I had no idea. But LL Cool J did it, and he's cool as hell. So if he does it, then I can pull it off. Maybe not as cool as LL Cool J. He kind of made that into an art. But geez, he's LL Cool J.
Yeah. It was a Joe Rogan stand-up actually, but I've loved this quote for so long, and it was, treat everybody else as if it was you living another life. Because who's to say if I wasn't born in anyone else's shoes that I wouldn't be just like them based on, every little thing that has caused them to be the person that they are. So you treat everyone like it was you living another life. If someone disagrees with you and you think about, well, where did they grow up? If you know their family life, what would I be like if I was literally born in their shoes? Probably pretty similar. So I like to approach it like that.
We all think we're so special, but in reality, we're a meat suit being run around by whatever else whatever controls us. My daughter is really insightful, and we had a funeral outside our house the other day. And in Vietnam, the funerals are really loud, and they last a couple days, and they were playing these it's almost like a Southeast Asian bagpipe of sorts. It's really loud. They were playing this instrument, And my daughter, she's like, so Dad, and I was trying to explain to her why people have funerals, because people believe in a soul that kind of leaves the body and the body's here and the soul goes off somewhere else. And she's like, and my daughter, pretty much in 20 seconds, perfectly described simulation hypothesis. The idea that we're like, she's like, oh yeah, dude. She was like, nailed it. I was just like, damn, it took me years to figure out.
At 5?
5. So she looked at me and she's like, Dad, I think this is like a giant video game where, so the soul is the part of us that's playing the body. And when you die, that part leaves and then it goes and plays another body. Is that right? And I was like, I don't know, but that's kind of deep right there. And she's like, it's kind of like a video game and we're here kind of playing a mission. You play a character and then that part leaves that's playing the body. The body's just the place that you're playing and you kind of goes back. And I was just like, what world are you from, child? Because that's some crazy stuff. You're 5.
That's insane insight for a 5-year-old.
Yeah,
and that is actually very impressive. And it's funny that that's coming out of a 5-year-old when that is a pretty, I mean, reincarnation isn't a new idea, but the whole simulation video game theory, that's a pretty new idea. So for her to come up with that, I'm assuming organically, not reading scientific papers.
Scientific. I'm a big proponent of simulation theory, but like I never talked to my kid about it.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
like, she's 5. She probably wouldn't get it. Little do you know, she's like she just on board.
And I was just like, and on that note, Daddy is done for the day.
Yeah.
Well, brother, this has been an awesome conversation, man. We should definitely have you back on again sometime. I would
love to be back on. I love doing these. I love chatting.
Anytime someone asks me like, what is the what are we going to have a conversation on? I'm like, I have no idea. I literally don't know until we get in. I like to ask people their background, and I have a set of questions. Oh, I have a new question. I'll ask you this before we finish up. This was brought on. I'm going to start asking this. If you had a superpower, what would it be, and what would you do with it?
Ooh, that's a tough one because, of course, the expected answer is flying. You know, I love anything aerial. But a superpower, and what would I do with it? Actually, yeah, I'm going to go either invincibility if that's allowed.
Sure, of course.
Because then I could definitely take up base jumping and do all these crazy action sports without the fear of dying. Nice. So invincibility would be number 1, and number 2 would be the ability to fly. Would
you be a hero or a villain?
Yeah. Oh, hero, I'd hope. Definitely want to be a hero. I want to help as many people and get as many smiles as possible, but
I might end up an anti-hero. I would want teleportation. I'd want teleportation.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
If I teleported, I'm literally straight up teleporting into like Fort Knox and banks, and I would be going full on. I'm not going to lie. I'd be going full on Robin Hood, man. I'd be like.
Yeah. No, I like that. I can get behind that. Teleporting into a bank or into some
gold vault.
Shitty multi-millionaire dude. Yeah. I get
some guy like, this is my vault of money. And I'm like, not now.
Yeah. Get in there, pack a bag, out of there.
That's awesome.